To Genesis chapter 13. Genesis chapter 13. As we continue our talk about how Genesis is history, there are plenty of folks who are out there who would not assert that. They would simply say that the Bible as a whole, especially the Old Testament, is just a bunch of stories about guys who may or may not have existed, but certainly what the Bible has to say about them is more legend, more myth, more tall tale than what we would consider historical at all, as if modern man is the only responsible party that has ever recorded any kind of history. But as we see even in our modern times, when you place history into the hands of men, to the victor goes the spoils, right? I mean, if you win, then you get to write the narrative. And we've seen people trying to rewrite history in our own country. Now, we've not been around that long, right? Just a couple hundred years, and so we've not been around that long, but people are already wanting to rewrite the history of our country and what the founding fathers believed, and eliminate certain things and add in certain things, and we're going to insert some really bad things so people think less of those early pioneers of our country. And we're going to take certain things out so that people don't, or won't believe that, for instance, we were a country founded on Christian principles, and that the early church fathers, the early country's fathers were very closely aligned with early church fathers. And the two went hand in hand, and they firmly believed that, if we upheld God, then God would uphold us, and we would find this endeavor that we call the United States of America, something that would be beneficial to the world. History, right? And so when we look at history and we ask the question, well, were these people real? Were these places real? Were these things actually said, or were these stories actually true? We can go to the Bible and we can trust definitively what the Scripture says. And people, again, will take issue with that, but there is no other book like the Bible, and it bears repeating just about every time we have this class. And again, remember, it's a class, so if you want to participate, just throw your hand in the air. But it's worth repeating every single time. The biblical narrative is trustworthy, is history. As a matter of fact, we've never gone and dug in the dirt anywhere around the world and find something that contradicted what the Bible says. We've not gone and dug somewhere and found evidence that disproves that the Bible spoke true when it came to certain things. We find the opposite all the time, right? We find that, every time we seem to dig in the dirt and find artifacts and pottery and steles and drawings and paintings and all those sorts of things, that they confirm the biblical narrative. There was a Nineveh, there was a Babylon, there were Hittites, there were Hivites, there were Jebusites. There were all of these people that, guess what? The Bible mentions, right? And so the Bible gets confirmed an awful lot, but people kind of pass over the narrative. And then when it comes to stories like the one we're going to talk about tonight, and really we're talking about this particular story because it kind of bears witness to the fact that there was an Abraham, right? There was a guy by the name of Abram, and he did live, and you would not believe that that is a controversial thing, but indeed it is. There are a lot of folks out there who would say, well, there's no such guy as Abraham. Abraham is just simply, same with Moses, Abraham is just an amalgam of certain ideas that, people wanted to put together. And these are ideas that they as a culture embodied and believed in. And so they created these characters to embody these particular traits. We realize that when we typically do that, we create superheroes, right? We don't create guys like Abraham, who ends up killing lots of people because he lied to somebody. We don't create guys like Moses, who, was making up excuses and didn't want to go and ends up killing somebody. And he's a flawed individual. We typically don't make those kind of characters up. But that's what the Bible does. And the Bible is very honest, with that. But we connect Sodom and Gomorrah to Abram because Sodom and Gomorrah are the cities that are bargained for by Abram with God himself. And of course, Lot is caught up in that whole fiasco. So let's just run through it very quickly. You remember that Lot is traveling with Abram and Sarai, and they've got a lot of people in their home, and they've got a lot of cattle and herds, mostly probably sheep, and they're there existing with one another east of the Jordan in what later would become the land of Canaan, and there's not enough land. And one day, Lot comes to Abram and says, "Look, we're occupying too much of the same space. There's not enough for them to eat. It's causing some tension." And so Abram gives Lot the choice. You can choose whatever land. And this becomes important. This becomes important because it helps us identify a few things about where exactly they were. But if you open up to chapter 13 of the book of Genesis, it says, beginning in verse 2, "Now Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. And he journeyed from the Negeb as far as Bethel to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai," right? And so if you take a look at the map here, and I left most of the things off, but if you take a look at the map here, here's Bethel and Ai, and this is the place, or relatively in that area, where Lot and Abraham are standing. And you see that green valley that is on my side here? Right in the middle of that green valley is the river Jordan, and this is the Dead Sea. And of course, Abraham and Lot would have stood somewhere right around here, and they would have been able to look out over the Jordan Valley. And see the Jordan River, and then further to the south, they would have been able to see the Dead Sea, and I'll show you a picture of it here in just a little bit. But this is the place where they're standing, where Lot is asked to make the decision. What piece of land do you want? And really what it comes down to, and maybe this side shows it a little bit better, what it really comes down to is, do you want this land that's on this side of the Jordan, or do you want this land, which other maps show a whole bunch of tributaries coming off of the Jordan in this area, and thus it's wider? Do you want that side of the Jordan in order for your animals? But there was a guy who, reading these passages, just happened to be an archaeologist. He was reading these passages, and he thought, if that's where Lot settled, if that's where his family got caught up with the army, and that's where his tent was pitched towards Sodom, then Sodom and thus Gomorrah must be all in there somewhere, right? And so if he was close enough to get caught up in that war, and he was close enough to kind of be threatened by that catastrophic event that took place there, then that must be the place where Sodom and Gomorrah is. And so he went in search of this place. Now, there are others. Let me go back a slide. There are others prior to this time who kind of went here and started looking at these spots down at the south end of the Dead Sea for Sodom and Gomorrah. And the reason they did that was because I believe Ezekiel talks about how they would be, or that it was in the south. It was in the south that Sodom would be situated, and they would look north and long for their land. Ezekiel, in one of his prophecies, talks about it. But the word south in that particular context doesn't actually mean south. It actually means right? And so if they're looking from the south to the north, on their right side would be all of this land, including this little section right here. And so there was no need really to go all that far south. As a matter of fact, it doesn't make much sense if Lot and Abram are all the way, up here. If Lot and Abraham are all the way up here, it's kind of a far cry to say that they could see that far south to that particular plot of land. And so again, there's this archaeologist and his team, and they look at this and they're reading it, and they say, you know what? We're going to go and search. This is, now this isn't like 1960s, 1970s, 1920s. This is 2005. So we're not talking that long ago, right? Not talking that long ago. So 2005. And they've spent the, it's last 20 years there. They're still there, by the way, as far as I've heard. They're still there. They're still digging in the dirt, and they're still looking around. But what they have found, right? Well, let me tell you what they haven't found. What they have not found is a sign that says, "Welcome, thank you for entering Sodom." Right? There is no sign that says that. There is no, announcement of this is the name of this city. Matter of fact, they've not found anything, like that. There's no proclamation, but that kind of makes sense, don't you think? Because if your hometown is being destroyed by raining balls of fire, there's probably not going to be much left. As a matter of fact, that's the thing they find. That's the thing they find. But before we get to that point, what you have to realize is that the Bible describes this particular part of the world. It says, number one, that it is a fertile area, right? That's why Lot chose it, because it was fertile. There are lots of flowing streams. There are lots of, vegetation. There are lots of things like that. And there is, there are cities there. There are the cities of the plain. You have Zoar, and you have Sodom, and you have Gomorrah, and there are other cities that are in existence on this plain. Why? Well, because there's water, and because it's fertile, and because, well, that's where people usually set up camp. We don't go to the desert to build our cities, typically, right? I mean, there are one-offs. You got Vegas, right? But whatever. But I mean, you have people, and that's where they build. They build near the water. They build near the resources. And so that's, what we would expect to actually, find there. What we know today is that this area is also, these cities that were on this plain are built on a fault line. They're built on a fault line, which becomes important. And there were natural, according to the scripture, how do you want to put it? Have you ever been to a volcanic park, Yellowstone or Lawson National Park, Hawaii? Okay, so we turn on the TV and we watch lava flow from the ground in Hawaii, right? This place had places like that. Oh, anybody ever go to the tar pits, like La Brea or any of those? No? Well, I mean, it doesn't matter, but it's like that. They had these pits of what was called bitumen, bitumen, right? And it was bubbling up in the ground. This is the stuff that Noah would have collected and would have put inside and outside, the ark. We would call it tar. But there were these natural pits of this stuff that was there. And see, all of that, the fault line, the bitumen, and then, other things are going to combine here to make for that catastrophic event that we know as the destruction of, Sodom and Gomorrah. But back to our archaeologists. Archaeologists go there, and they're looking for Sodom in this particular area. And sure enough, when they go there and they look across this valley, this is on the east side. So this would be right about where Abraham and Lot would have stood, and they would have looked down into that valley, and they would have seen all of those features down there. Somewhere in there is the Jordan River, and then way far down here is going to be the Dead Sea. Right? And so this is the valley that they were looking across. And these archaeologists, they go there and they found this place that's called Tel Ahaman, right? And they find this mound right here. I don't know if you can really see it. Hold on. It's right here. You can kind of make out some of the digs right here. But there was this mound. And on top of this mound, they started to dig. And when they began to dig, they started to find the infrastructure for an ancient city. And at first, the things that they were finding were, not of the right period to be anywhere near where Abram was. And so they kept digging and kept digging and kept digging. And lo and behold, a few years into the dig, I believe it was 8 years in to the dig, they came across this layer of this civilization that once was, where they found these outstanding features by which they could tell something really, really horrible happened here during this generation of the people who lived there. And what they found were these things. Right? They found despite centuries of erosion, there was a vast amount in this one particular layer. I believe it was upward of 4 feet thick. 4 feet thick. They found this ash layer that indicated there was some mass destruction kind of event that took place. And this 4 foot, some places 4 foot, layer had indicated that there was not only a fire, but a fire that burned well beyond the temperatures that are typically capable by you simply taking some wood and setting it on fire. Okay, and so pottery shreds were found, shards were found that were melted. There's a couple really good videos about this out there. Now, I will warn you, if you go in search of this, beware. People who mean well, who like to take fractions of truth and then turn it into something much larger than it actually is, will, speak with a definitive tone about things that really aren't proven, by this. I mean, it is a very huge coincidence, not coincidence. I mean, it is a very, very telling information that seems to be evidence in the right place at the right time and looks an awful lot like Sodom and Gomorrah. But again, we don't have any signs that are simply pointing there. So can we say that it proves it 100%? No, we can't say that. Can't say that. But it looks a lot like it. And if it, quacks like a duck and it looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. David, do you have something? The what? Correct title? I can, yeah, I'll put them out on the flock note. I can send it to you. Just realize there's a lot of people out there who, because we have social media and anybody can take their phone and record something, there's a lot of bad information. And I think a lot of the people mean well. It's just, what proves too much proves nothing at all kind of thing. So you can't draw wrong conclusions from correct information. And so we just have to be careful of that we're not, taking information that people have spent years gathering and applying it in wrong ways. Todd? Well, these individuals say they've only found Sodom. As far as I know, they've not really said much about Gomorrah. There are other videos that claim that they found both of them. But we assume, if this is indeed Sodom, then Gomorrah is going to be somewhere nearby, right? Was it north? Was it south? Was it east? Was it west? Where was it? And so you can only go where the evidence takes you, right? Or at least that's what it should be. If you go there and you find nothing, then you can assume one of two things. You can assume, well, I'm in the wrong place, or it was so utterly destroyed that nothing's left, or maybe the description is inaccurate in some way, or maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but maybe the Bethel and Ai that I know are not the ones that are there, now. There's a lot of factors here that you would have to factor into it, but the fact of the matter is they did figure out, these individuals did figure it out, and they went to the place where they thought it would be, and they dug down, and they found this place where it looks like an event that the Bible describes later on. What is it? Chapter 19 of Genesis could have happened. Could have happened. And you have something else, Tom? Well, it's if you go back and you look at the valley is only so big, right? And so we're standing on a hill, and of course this is the valley, and these are the hills on the other side of it. The cities of the plain would have been in this plain. So they can't be too far apart, right? They can't be that far apart because that valley is not that big. Anybody ever been to the Holy Land? It's not a big stretch of land. It's not a massive place where, it's going to take you a ton of time to get from point A to point B, especially now, when you have, travel that's motorized and things like that. Again, here's a little bit of the digging that they've done. But again, let's go back here. They found pottery shards that were turned into glass, right? They found glass. Let's put it this way. They found glass all over the place that had been, or that was liquefied silica, basically, kind of like you would find at the base or the ground zero for a nuclear explosion, right? It gets that hot. It's estimated by them that these crystals that were melted, were somewhere around 2,200 degrees centigrade. Some estimates that I've seen say that number is a lot higher. It's more like 6,000 degrees centigrade. Mud brick structures were literally blown off of their foundations. And then you had, you had the foundation stones just scattered everywhere. There were bone fragments scattered everywhere. And I'll show you some of the bone fragments later. Some bone fragments were covered with this liquefied glass, and they were sheared off at kind of odd places and showed evidence that they had been exposed to a really high heat. It was so high that it caused the bones to curl. Apparently that has to be really, really hot for that to happen. I don't know about those types of things, but this is what they found. They found this one layer, and it was beneath all these other layers that they had dug on previously, which were the wrong time. But when they started to date this, they found out that this was exactly in the right time that would have included the era of Abram and when he would have lived. This is a quote from the archaeologist himself. He said, "We have pieces of pottery melted into glass, some bubbled like lava, found across the site. We have burned foundation stones, bricks turned red, ceramic-like from extremely hot temperatures. Most of the site or mud brick superstructures are seemingly blown off their foundation. It is a scene of uttermost devastation and disintegration. We have even documented pieces of desert glass, impact glass, strewn across the eastern Kikar, created at temperatures exceeding 6,000 degrees Celsius." Now, how does that happen? How does that happen? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen under normal circumstances. You're not going to go to your backyard and build a fire that burns at 6,000 degrees. You can fire up an acetylene torch, cutting torch, and I think it burns at 3,000 degrees. I have to check it out again, but I'm pretty sure it's about 3,000 degrees, and you're cutting metal with it, right? And some of this stuff was exposed to temperatures of up to 6,000 degrees. Now that's Celsius, and so we have to kind of make the conversion, but nonetheless, that's hot. That's hot. And so how does it happen? Well, a lot of people would stop at this point and think, well, that kind of thing really doesn't happen. And so, it's probably an exaggeration or, something along that line. But believe it or not, there is a natural phenomenon that's happened at least one time in the last 115 years that caused this kind of devastation. It happened in Russia in 1908. A comet entered their atmosphere and never hit the ground. Never hit the ground, but it exploded, I believe they said, about 3 kilometers above hitting the ground. But the blast was so huge that it turned the soil into glass and did not burn the trees, but laid every single one of them flat to the ground, created a crater. And you can look it up, 1908, comet, Russia. You should be able to get the results. But it looks exactly, or it looks a lot like what we see at this dig here in what is proposed to be Sodom and Gomorrah. So a lot of people say, well, it was a comet, right? It was a comet that came out of the sky. Well, I mean, if a giant block of something is coming into our atmosphere, what's it going to look like? It's going to look a lot like what the Bible describes as, these stones that are flaming coming from the sky. And then you're coming into an area where there are these pots of bubbling tar that are just waiting to explode, right? And so this thing comes into the atmosphere, God directing it, of course, and it explodes and sends out all of this debris, these fire falling from the sky. It's exploding these pits of tar-like stuff. It's just amazing. I mean, you can't fathom the destruction that is taking place in this place. And that's exactly what they said. It's exactly what they found here. Now, here's some. These are, of course, legs, and they're literally sheared off just below the head of his humerus, right? Humerus? Yeah. That right? Femur. Where's the humerus? That's here. Knew it was the upper one somewhere, right? And so they're sheared off right here, and the toes are like curled up this way. I don't know if you can see it real well, but this kind of thing was found all over the place. As a matter of fact, they didn't find too many complete skeletons, but they found a lot of bone fragments and bones that had been destroyed and bones that had been scattered, all over the place. And it's right here across from Bethel and Ai. And this is the place where they found it. And again, this shows the rivers, the tributaries coming off the river. So it's that fertile land. And so you can imagine one day, Lot and Abram stood on that top of that valley, and they looked across and they saw this fertile land that was much to be desired, only to just a little while later, they're looking out over this land, and it's now a vast wasteland. Turned that way by some cataclysmic event that is just, horrible to describe. And so these people are over there and they're digging and they're finding these things. And again, does it prove that, Sodom and Gomorrah are there definitively? No. We may be 99.9%, but, it seems very likely that this is at least one of the cities that we know of that are described in the Bible as being destroyed by that fire that is falling from heaven. But the big point is this, that, if indeed we have at least a relatively high percentage of confirmation of that, story, then it's just another thing in the Bible that we can see as being historical. And if we can believe in that, why can't we believe that Abraham was the one who was there and saved his nephew from the destruction that took place in that city and on that plain? I mean, just like we know Bethel and Ai were real places, nobody doubts that. Just like we know the Dead Sea is there, the Jordan River, nobody denies those things either. These places are there. So we go and we dig into the dirt and we find these things. Now, there are other things about the find that you can look up and you can see. There are things that they have found in that layer of ash that typically are not in soil that people would occupy. And so there's a lot of sulfur, there's a lot of different things that make up that layer where the ash was found and the burning was found that are typically not in areas where people would build. Again, it's a big long list of things, and it involves chemical compositions of stuff, and I'm scratching my head the whole time I'm reading it. And so the big takeaway was that these things aren't normally found in these areas. And so how did they get there? Well, again, it goes back to people saying, well, maybe it was a comet. The thing that it's not, and here's the one thing that is you want to watch out for. Well, not the one thing, but one of the things that you got to watch out for. A lot of people will listen to those things like we talked about tonight, talk about the find, talk about the city, talk about the burning, the ash, and all of that, and they'll say, well, yeah, things like that do happen when these meteors, I think that's the right term, when the meteors, come and they do that, and that only happens every once in a while, and on that grand scale, As far as we know, it's only happened maybe 1-2 times in here, but people see that, and then they build the story around that, right? And so it's not that there was a Sodom and Gomorrah per se, where there was great wickedness and God was judging it, and God brought this all down upon them. Rather, the people who lived in that era and wrote the story saw the destruction and then assumed it was God's judgment, assumed it was God's wrath being poured out. And so they made up this story about a guy named Abram who bargained with God to save a city that could not be saved, so that they could tell a moral tale about, things that they wanted people to adopt in their culture, about their sense of morality or goodness or whatnot, right? And so they turn it on its head. Science is the explanation. The Bible is the tall tale myth version of it, because that's what they want people to believe. And yet at every turn, we find that the Bible leads the way, right? I mean, the Bible tells us where Bethel and Ai is. The Bible told these archaeologists where to dig, and the Bible tells them what they would find there. You're going to find fire from heaven. You're going to find destruction. You're going to find high concentrations of salt. You're going to find all of these things in that part of the world, which was once a fertile land and now, very simply, is not. Why? Due to the wrath of God. Right? And so people get it backwards all the time because they assume certain things about science, so to speak, and certain things about the Bible. They don't want to acknowledge the Bible for what it is, an accurate book of history, as proven by archaeological digs like this one, or the one at Jericho, or plenty of the others that we have around. But they'd rather believe that, they're just making it up based upon some scientific thing that they experienced. Anyhow, any questions, comments? Todd, you look like you're ready to say something. Oh, okay. So how did Lot's wife turn to a pillar of salt? Just by simply, going like that? Because, that's what happens, right? God tells them, don't look back. And of course, the reason for telling them don't look back is because, God wanted their full allegiance. He wanted to know that, they were all in. Well, I'm trying to get you out of there. But, we'll go over it in the class on Sunday morning, but it is the, Lot's escape from, Sodom and Gomorrah is one of the most messed up stories that you'd ever want to read. We usually give the quick version, where there was the bargaining, there were the angels, they went to the city, they talked to them, they got them out of the city, they lived happily ever after, right? No. It's just bad. It's bad. It's when you read the account of Lot's escape from the city, it reads more like a tragedy than it does a rescue. Because he doesn't want to leave. And he begs to go to another city that's on the plain, right? And it's not just Sodom and Gomorrah that are getting destroyed. It's the cities of the plain. And so he's bargaining to go to another place that's in, that's in the crosshairs of God's wrath. It just gets worse from there, right? It just gets worse from there. Anyhow, how does she turn into a pillar of salt? I don't think we have a scientific explanation for it. I think it's a miraculous thing. I think it's like with Korah and the ground opening up and, swallowing them. I think it's a God thing. It's miraculous. It's the same as, people coming back from the dead. I think God was raining his wrath down upon the place, and that was part of it. You ever known anybody to turn into a pillar of salt? Yeah, I mean, I've never thought to look at it. I've never thought to look it up. But I figure if we had people turning into pillars of salt left and right, we would probably have heard about that. So I'm assuming it's kind of a miraculous thing. But if I'll look it up and I'll find if there's anything different, we can bring it up next week. Gary? Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Right. Right. That it's the same dig. Yeah. Right. Right. That's the same dig that you're talking about, the way they found the high concentrations of the sodium, the salt, and all of that, and sulfur too. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? I mean, it may not be a thing here, but yeah. Very good. Excellent. Any other comments? All right. Well, I think the important thing is, to remember that, Sodom and Gomorrah were the product of, God's patience running out. I mean, they were people who were doing vile and wicked things, and they were a people who were about to be punished. And the story of Lot is kind of sandwiched in there to remind us that even people of, righteous, pure backgrounds can get caught up in those things in the world. I mean, Lot barely escapes. I mean, if Lot's story is not a story of grace, I don't know what is. But it just shows you how gracious God, is toward us. And so tonight, as we kind of wind things up, let's ask that question. Have you embraced that, graciousness of God? Have you embraced the salvation that he offers? As the Bible tells us, faith comes by hearing the word of God. Everybody's spiritual journey, everybody's journey toward God's graciousness is a journey that begins with understanding. It's not a feeling thing. It's not I had a miraculous event thing. It's a faith thing, and faith, it has substance, and that substance is God's word. And so, have you heard the word? Do you believe? In other words, have you been convicted by it? And being convicted by the word, have you repented of your sins? Have you confessed the name of Christ? Have you gone into the waters of baptism, where you reenact the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, Romans chapter 6, where you do so in order to be saved, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 21. Maybe you've done that. Maybe tonight you're here and you have some other need that you need to bring before your family. Don't hold back. The sooner you put it out there, the sooner you can get help. The sooner we can start lifting up prayers for you. If you're here tonight and you have any need, if you're online, put it in the chat. We'll bring it here. If you're here, come to one of the front pews while together we stand and sing.
They led him through the straits and shame. They spat upon the Savior, so pure and free from sin. They crucify him, easy to blame. Upon his precious head, they placed a crown of thorns. They laughed and said, "Behold the King." They struck him and they cursed him and mocked his holy name. All alone he suffered everything. To the howling mob he yelled, and he did not for mercy cry. The cross of shame he took alone. And when he cried, "It's finished," he gave himself to to die. Salvation's wondrous plan was done. He could have called 10,000 angels to destroy the world and set him free. He could have called 10,000 angels, but he died alone.